Oh, the walking dendro, Heterostamia cochlear. Super
Nice.
unique. Uh, Top three by far.
What's up, Reef Fanatics? Welcome to the Coral Reef Talk podcast. My name is Joey Jones, and again, I'm joined by...
The oddball reefer. How's it going, everyone?
That's right, oddball reefer Levi Peterson. We're here today. We're going to talk about LPS corals, right? That's what we're jumping into.
Yep.
Do you want to break down LPS corals? In the last episode, we talked about soft corals. You kind of broke that down for everyone.
Yeah.
I can let you take it away if you'd like.
All right. So LPS corals pretty much stands for large polyp stony coral, meaning that the polyps on the corals are rather larger than your SPS, and then even some of your soft corals. And it varies with a wide range of corals, including non-photosynthetics, chalices, turbinarias, Duncans, trackies, even solitary cup corals like your scolemia and the Canthophylias and such. So, it hits a wide range of beautiful corals, and we can't wait to share what we have picked out for you guys here. So,
Yes, absolutely. And they differentiate from soft corals because these are corals that actually have that calcium carbonate skeleton. Like you said, large polyp stony, they have the larger polyps, and SPS are the smaller polyps. But I picked out 3 corals to share with you guys today, and you've done the same?
Sure have.
All right. You want to go ahead and start it off? Because you being the oddball reefer, I'm sure you got some interesting ones for us again today. So I'm excited to jump right into it. So we'll go ahead and start with you if you're ready.
Yeah.
So what do we got first?
All right. So this is the Tricatoflabellum baroni. It's a solitary cup coral. It comes from like the Northern Territory of Australia, murky waters, rather deep, like 80 foot. And it's going to come from a muddy region. I wish I had a better photo of the foot, but it's kind of like a cone shaped. You can kind of see it in this picture right here, actually. How it kind of just cones down into the sand. It's similar to like the cone bottom elegans, but this is a non-photosynthetic coral. Super pretty. They got like orange and white stripes through the whole polyp, so you can kind of see it there. It's really unique, and you definitely hardly ever see them in the hobby, so they're really cool. And I'm happy to have a couple here at the house. So yeah, super unique and super odd looking.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's got that clear look and the tentacles there, and
translucent look. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty nice. And that one's non-photosynthetic, you're saying?
Yes, this one's non-photosynthetic. But it has a rather large polyp, so it's really easy to like feed. You feed mysis or brine shrimp or whatever meaty foods. It really enjoys them. So
awesome. Yeah, that's definitely an interesting one. I like that. So, all right. So I have one for us that is. I used to have this coral a long time ago, and I've always wanted to get another one, but I have not. This is the bubble coral, and this is found Indo-Pacific. It has the fleshy polyps, that cover the complete skeleton of the coral. This guy likes like low lighting. You don't want to give it too much lighting, right? But this thing has the sweeper tentacles. You can kind of see them in the back. Oh, look, that's me from years ago. But here we go. So it's kind of delicate to handle. I've always handled them from the very bottom. You don't want to like risk popping the fleshy tissue or anything. But I'll kind of pause it right here. You can kind of see the bottom there. But it has these bubbles that these large polyps that kind of engulf or cover the skeleton of this coral. Good place to put it is down on the sand bed. Find a nice place in the sand bed where you're getting like a moderate water flow. You don't want to blast this coral too much because of those bubbles. You don't want to end up damaging those. But yeah, I find this coral to be very beautiful. There's usually like greens and whites that you can get. And overall, this thing has some really long sweeper tentacles, though. Let's see if I can skip ahead to farther along in the video, but you can kind of see them starting to come out right there. So you want to kind of space it out from other corals, or else they're going to sting neighboring corals for sure. But I mean, what do you think about bubble corals?
I love them. I have a couple here in the lagoon tank. I mean, they're super unique.
Mm-hmm.
They're a lot different looking than any other LPS coral. I mean, they're just super different. And if you're looking for something that's going to stick out and maybe look a little different compared to a lot of your other corals, this would definitely be a cool one to add to like a mixed reef or whatever to add some diversity. And I mean, they're really not that hard to keep either. They're relatively easy from my experience, anyways. And they can inflate really large, like even like some small frags at work. I mean, they literally will open up like almost the size of the palm of my hand. I mean, they can open up pretty big, and they do get sweepers. So keep that in mind as well when placing them.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you want to be very careful handling it, but once you find a place in your aquarium, it's probably going to do just fine, and they're pretty simple to keep, like you said. But yeah, so that's my first one. I got this thing years ago, and when I first got it, I was told that they were really hard to keep, and I'm guessing that's just because you need to be careful when handling it. You don't want to pick it up too much, so once you find a spot, like I said, just kind of leave it there. But yeah, green, white, yellow, even some
Yeah,
colors of
yeah.
these.
Splattered. I've seen some like kind of
Yeah,
splattered. So,
yeah, and you can feed them as well. So
yes, yes.
yeah, those little tentacles coming out there by the bubbles, they will pull in some mysis food and stuff, mysis shrimp for sure. But cool. So, all right, what do we got up next from the
Number
oddball?
two. Number two. Let's see.
Number two. Here we go.
Oh, the walking dendro, Heterosamia cochlea. Super
Nice.
unique. Uh, top three by far. They are photosynthetic, so that's always a plus. And what's really unique about these is they have a wide bottom, and they have a little like peanut worm that actually lives in them, and it
Yes.
actually moves them around. Hence the name walking dendro. Super cool. You don't see them too often anymore. They used to be a lot more common. I feel like when I first got into the hobby a few years ago, I'd see them all the time at local fish stores, and they're just hard to come by recently. But I was able to pick up a couple specimens here, like probably 6 months ago. They're doing amazing. I love them. And the one thing I would recommend though, I won't just throw these in any mixed reef tank because they do move around and you can't really like play with them. So you just got to keep in mind, like in my experiences, the worm's not very smart. I've seen it literally run into like other corals and like sting the coral or get stung. So just keep that in mind because it literally has a mind of its own. So it's gonna like wander around, and I've had it get stuck under rocks before and stuff. So you just got to kind of keep an eye on it and make sure none of your other corals or anemones are stinging it. So other than that, it's a really cool coral and just something really different. And they are pretty easy to keep too. So
Yeah, and care level for this, I'd imagine similar to other dendros. You're just feeding
yeah,
it, feeding the
yeah,
heads. And
feeding.
stuff.
I mean, it's like it's photosynthetic too, so it does require some light. But I mean,
Okay.
they're relatively easy to keep. So yeah, I mean, if you've, I'd want to say intermediate level, you know, kind of like been in the hobby for a little bit, want to try something different, this would definitely be a cool coral.
Yeah, and I wonder if they should change the name to like wandering dendro
Wandering, I like that. I like that.
instead of walking dendro.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, that's pretty cool. I've seen those, and I'm like, I'm gonna get one, and usually I'll go back to the fish store to pick it up, and it'd be gone.
Yep.
Or they'll only have one or two, and then they'll just be gone. So
Yep.
one day, one day,
One day.
one day. Very cool. All right. So next on the list, this is probably one of my absolute favorite LPS corals. This is the first LPS coral that I ever purchased for my aquarium, and that would be the frog spawn coral.
Yes.
So this is a Euphilia coral. It's similar to hammer torches. They don't really require much light, but they can do well in different light setups. So they can do well in low light, medium light, and even adjust to highlight because I've had them like mid-level in my tanks before, and they've done fine. But yeah, these I want to say these are found like off the islands in the Indo-Pacific, like Fiji, Tonga, Solomon over there, um, Solomon Islands. Um, but yeah, this is my first ever frog spawn coral right here. I'm going to go ahead and play some of the footage here. Um, but yeah, they come in a variety of colors. But this is the purple tip with the green, and said to resemble like frog eggs, so hence the name frog spawn coral. But I would say they're pretty easy to keep for LPS coral. Um, like I said, whenever I was first getting into the aquarium hobby, that's it right there. The small one head polyp right here. Let me go here to the. Check this out. When I first started, I was like, "What in the world is this coral doing?" I was like, "My coral's dying. What's happening?" And then, like a little while later, it formed like a bubble over the mouth right there.
Okay.
And then it ended up, I guess, splitting or branching off and becoming um, two frog spawns. So,
Interesting.
yeah, it was pretty interesting. So, but yeah, frog spawn corals, they can do well in a couple different lighting situations. They are photosynthetic. You can also feed them. What else to say? They do have sweeper tentacles. Um, not as much as like a torch coral, or not as long as a torch coral.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, I think you pretty much hit it on the head right there. I mean, they're relatively easy. They're different. They have a cool look to them. And you can find them in multiple different colors. So
yes.
that one looks like a green with like a purple tip, kind of.
Yep, this one was a green with purple tip. And I have not been able to find another one.
Yeah, we get them in every so often in my work, but
Yeah.
very, very rarely for that specific color morph.
Yeah, usually you're seeing like the brownish tentacles with like the green tips or whatever.
Yep, we get those. We get like solid green, neon green,
Or
but
yeah,
I
solid neon.
haven't seen one of those in a while. So
Yeah. And this guy did very well. Like I said, my first LPS coral had him for, I want to say, over maybe 5, 7+ years,
wow,
and
yeah,
grew into a multiple head colony, a pretty big colony there.
awesome.
But yeah, frog spawns are really cool. So if you're looking for an LPS coral, maybe it's your first LPS coral. I mean, frog spawn worked out for me. I would definitely recommend Euphyllia's corals, hammers, torch, frog spawn. If you had to rank those three on like the most aggressive
Most
out of
aggressive out of those three, I probably would say torch. Like torches can
yes.
be pretty aggressive.
Yeah, so I'd probably rank them torch at the high end, then frog spawn, and then a hammer coral.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. All right, sir.
Number 3.
Number 3, and this is an interesting one too.
Yes.
All of yours are pretty.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so sun corals. Obviously they're non-photosynthetic.
Mm-hmm.
They come in a couple different color morphs. You get like black, yellow, orange. There was like a blue strain that was coming into the hobby a while back, but we actually found out that those were actually dyed overseas. They dye them and then send them. So that was really weird and interesting.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some of my favorite corals. They add color to your tank. Lower light for sure. This is just in my previous non-photosynthetic tank. When the lights were on, I usually had the lights off for majority of the day. They open up relatively well. They eat like mysis feast or like mysis, brine shrimp, just pretty much meaty foods, even some pellets that are on the smaller side. And like I said, they add a bunch of color to your tank. They're one of the more easier to keep non-photosynthetic corals because they have larger polyps and they're easier to feed.
Yeah.
Compared to like the gorgonians and other soft corals. But for LPS, I want to say this is definitely one I wouldn't recommend diving right into if you're trying to get some LPS corals in your system. This is definitely for a more experienced reefer that's been in the hobby for a while and that likes to feed their system. So,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I tried a. Have you had a black one before?
I have, yeah.
So I had a black one at one point,
Hmm.
and you got to stay on top of feeding these things.
Yes.
So that's probably one of the main reasons, right, for not jumping into it right away, because
Yeah.
you
Yep.
have to be able to care for it properly by feeding it. Um, and I could not do that, so I was like, I'm taking this thing back to the fish store.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. The black sun coral, I want to say, is probably one of the more challenging of the couple different species. Like specifically, I don't know because they tend to have some smaller polyps compared to like the yellow and the orange. But yeah, I've definitely struggled with the black sun coral more than any other sun coral. So
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I believe that was the thing back then too, as they said it was more challenging to keep.
yeah,
'Cause we had the orange ones as well, and those would come out just fine. We'd drop some food into them, they'd be fine. But like, yeah, I'm a huge fan of LPS coral. So I was about to say this is my favorite. Not my favorite. Frog spawn's my favorite, but this is one of my favorites. This is the Duncan coral. So what I really like about the Duncan coral is this is also a pretty easy uh, coral to take care of. Um, it comes from, I believe, like Australia side of
yep,
things, South China Sea. Um, but you can, this is a very peaceful coral, non aggressive. You can put this like low in the tank, give it some space to grow because it will branch out. Um, or you can put it like mid level in your tank and it does just fine. But what I really like about this coral is whenever you go to feed it, you can actually see it pull in the mysis shrimp and close in on the mouth right there. So it's really, really cool to feed. It's a fun coral to have in your tank. Um, you can see them like kind of brownish tentacles here with the green polyp, but you can also, they come in different color morphs as well. Like there's all green ones and stuff. But you can see it taking in some mysis shrimp right here. But overall, I would say it's pretty easy to care for.
hmm
If you can keep like a candy cane coral in your tank, you can probably do well with the Duncan. Is that fair to say?
yes, definitely.
Yeah. Now, with all of these corals, of course, you want to keep like the recommended, like the general guidelines when it comes to your aquarium parameters, right?
Yeah,
Um, you want to keep your calcium, alkalinity, magnesium at those recommended levels. You want to keep your temperature stable, of course, and your salinity stable as well. Um, but yeah, Duncan coral, one of my all-time favorite corals. Frog spawn, absolute favorite coral. One day, I will get another pink or purple tip green frog spawn. If you ever see one, let me know.
I got you covered. Don't worry. I'll keep my eyes out.
All right, and yeah, the bubble coral. But yeah, out of the ones that you shared today, which one is? Do you have a favorite, or are those just your three
It's
favorites?
super hard to choose. Like those are three of my multitude of favorites. Like I can't
Mhm.
have a favorite coral. It's very challenging to pick. I mean, I think it changes like day to day too. Like when we get stuff in at work and stuff, like I see something I haven't seen before, it's a new favorite, like automatically. Like, oh, I've never seen that. It's yeah, so there's a lot of factors that play into it, but it's super hard to choose.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of something that gives your tank some kind of motion to it, something that
Yes.
you can watch like sway in the current. So if that's like a frog spawn with like its tentacles out, or like the
Mm-hmm.
Duncan coral and it's like flowery looking um, self, like that's what I like in the reef tank. Um, but yeah, so is there any more advice that we could share when it comes to keeping LPS corals or keeping any of the ones that we've mentioned?
I want to say like obviously just do your research before purchasing corals.
Hmm.
Make sure you're ready for that, especially if you're just kind of starting out. Just make sure your tank's prepared. Make sure you're going to be able to keep up with your tank to keep the coral alive. Like just kind of make sure you're able to sustain the coral.
Yeah, for sure. And there are other corals to kind of get into before you get into some of these.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned, like a candy cane coral or trumpet coral, or any of the soft corals that we talked about in a previous episode. But if you like what we do here on the Coral Reef Talk podcast, go ahead, if you're watching on YouTube in video format, click that like button. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to the audio version, go ahead and leave us a review wherever you're listening to the podcast, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen. Leave us a review down there. But thank you so much for listening. Levi, thank you so much for sharing these odd, interesting corals that you always bring to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And if you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.